planning meeting, and if I can first of all ask Suzanne to read the notice and summons of meeting and attendance, and any apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the Planning Committee, which will be a hybrid meeting conducted remotely via WebEx and physically in the Council Chamber, Guildhall, Derry, on Wednesday the 5th of February 2025 at 2 p.m. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Alderman Neri McMorris.
Here.
Alderman Janice Montgomery.
Here.
Councillor John Boyle.
Here.
Councillor Caroline Devine. Councillor Sean Fleming. Councillor Sean Fleming. Come back. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
And Shaw.
Councillor Christopher Jackson.
Shaw.
Councillor Fergal Leonard.
And Shaw.
Councillor Patricia Logue.
Shaw.
Councillor Sean Mooney. Councillor Patrick Murphy.
Shaw.
Councillor Martin Riley.
Here.
Councillor Gracie Nealis.
And Shaw.
And Councillor Sean Fleming. Not here.
It's just having a problem getting online.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Suzanne. I'll just read the broadcasting statement. I would like to remind everyone physically present at this meeting or in attendance remotely. This meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you're consenting to being filmed and to use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the council privacy notice may be found on the council website www.derrystrabane.com. You can ask for any declaration of members' interest at this stage. Anybody online, any declaration of interest? No, I'm sure. As we go through the meeting, if there's something that come up, sure you can let me know on that. Moving on to chairperson's business, I've just one email from Sharon to remind you of the UNICEF Child Rights Training that is on the 20th of February 2025. It's on at 6 p.m. and it's on for 1.5 hours here in the chamber. And Sharon would like to encourage everybody to do their best to attend this training. Okay, I just want to ask Suzanne to go through the late items we received.
Thanks, Chair. Members, you'll have received an email on a late information in relation to application number 1, LA11 2020 0977. The email's from the applicant, Mr. Billy Henderson, seeking a further deferral to deal with some of the outstanding issues. Just to advise members, this obviously there's an application for 41 houses. It is a major category application, and if members are reminded to grant a further deferment, that officers would recommend a month to provide the outstanding information, and then we can consider that and take that forward if members are minded to carry that through. Thanks.
Okay, members, can I ask for your views on that request to defer? Is there anybody against that? Councillor Mooney, go ahead.
Chair, I don't have an issue if it's for a month. The only observation I have is that the site meeting was nearly 2 years ago. There's been a considerable time gap between now and then, and that's in the forefront of my mind. But if it's for another month, I have no issue. But hopefully, that information can be gathered. I mean, move this application at some stage. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yes, officers are aware of the delay in terms of progressing this case. Obviously, we've had to bring it today to try to conclude it. We have received this late request for deferral, which is, so again, it's up to members what you want to do with that, but that's why we're wanting to put a time on the submission of the information in order to try to conclude the matters.
Councillor Boyle.
Thank you, Chair, and appreciate the lead information that did come forward in relation to this. As Councillor Mooney quite rightly points out, the site visit for this was almost 2 years ago. I was on that site visit myself. I think in the interest of being reasonable, it is fair that we do give it 1 more month, but I think 1 more month it has to be it, and it should prove sufficient. If there is that level of information that we can further gather up, then that might prove useful to us. So I will propose on this occasion that we do defer for 1 month, but no longer than that, and that it is actually then heard at the next sitting of this committee. So I'll make that proposal, Chair, on a formal basis. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Chair. So just to clarify, it'll not come back to the March meeting because of the timeframes for the reports being provided, but it will come back to the April meeting if no information is received within the next 4 weeks.
Councillor Boyle. Yeah. And all the members in the chamber online want to make a comment on this request for deferral. Councillor Devine.
Chair, happy enough to second that we give it another month.
Okay, members, can I take it then right across the chamber online? We're happy for to give this a deferral today for another month as indicated. Thank you.
So then, members, moving on to item 2, which is LA 11 2023 1969. It's come to officers' attention that amended roads information that was submitted and that is included in the committee report requires third-party land. Okay, so the certificate of ownership that's currently on the case file would need to be amended. So the agent will be required to submit that information to us after today. We'll re-advertise and progress that back through the system. So it would be my recommendation today that we wouldn't be able to deal with this application today.
Thank you, Suzanne. Members, does anybody want to make any comments on that recommendation there? Councillor Boyle. Anybody else or anybody online? No. So, okay, then we'll defer that one as well. So then just go through the running order will be 3, 4 and 5. I'd like to bring Pontus in now. He's going to talk to us about LDP training that's in the pipeline first. Thank you, Pontus.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. You will no doubt recall that at the meeting of the Planning Committee on the 8th of January and the subsequent training session, that officers are proposed to hold and to lead a series of discussion, familiarisation sessions on the LDP and its content and its implementation for members, primarily of the Planning Committee, but open to all members. We did receive a number of comments on the format, and I think of that training or familiarisation on that day. Officers have now given consideration to those comments. Specifically, some of the comments suggested the merits of having a very concentrated few days consecutively of about the LDP, but other comments were that there was an awful lot of information to digest, and that maybe it would be better, spread out and taken probably in more digestible chunks, so to speak. Therefore, we've given consideration to that, and it would be the officer's suggestion that we organise a series of 3 or 4 sessions over the coming months, whereby we take the LDP in parts, either in chapters or key parts or themes, and probably about 3 to 4 we feel would be appropriate to to deliver on and discuss. We will give careful consideration to the venue and the format to allow maximum discussion and to allow feedback and comments to come from one session to another, etc., so that we all have a good understanding. Therefore, members, it is suggested that if we take that approach, that officers will flesh out the dates and the venues and the format. In the next week or so, I will circulate through the planning, the LDP steering group, which we have formed. I'll send out to them the details of the suggested dates and format and the initial suggestions on the topics, if that would be happy for members. Okay, thank you.
So members, open to the floor now for any comments about the suggested way ahead in our training. Alderman McMorris.
Can I just ask, is there going to be a couple of opportunities to do this? Or, do you know, I'm conscious it's going to be open to all councillors, not just planning. So if, say you missed a session, is there going to be any possibility that they would do a follow-up on that rather than, you know, doing 3 chunks instead of the 4? Do you know what I mean? Is that going to be factored up? Sorry, I know.
It probably would be logistically difficult, but certainly, you know, we can do follow-up or catch up, you know, some sort of session. But the way to envisage this, there is, as you know, a lot in the LDP. And if we took one, you know, sort of later in February, one in March, and one in April, you know, there would be some opportunity. We can certainly work with members to ensure that everybody has an appropriate understanding, particularly all of the planning committee. But that was sort of probably 3-4 sessions we believe would be probably digestible chunks.
Any other comments, Councillor Oak?
No, just if that needs a proposal, just to propose we take that approach. So.
Anybody online want to make any comments about the Punches talking to us there about the way ahead, the training for the LDP? No, I can't see. I take it Punches then the training will all be completed before that full LDP is implemented then.
That would be the intention, and we've indicated that we hope to do that in May. So, you know, we think it's sort of February, March, April would probably be the best months to get that done.
So I suppose the sooner that we get dates out, get dates agreed and get dates out, get into members' diaries would be good. So Councillor Oak proposed that we'll go ahead like this, and Alderman Montgomery seconded. Thank you. Thank you. Members, any matters arising from the Open Minutes of Planning Committee held on the 8th of January? Nelson, thank you. Any matters arising from the Open Minutes of Planning Committee that we had on the 22nd of January? Thank you. Okay, members, we're moving on now to the planning applications. Malachy is going to take us through this first one. It's a full application to convert outbuilding from a store to offices and providing a 4th floor extension to the rear of 8 Crawford Square. Thank you, Malachy.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. The item before you is LE11 2023-1927. It's a full application. The proposal is for converting the outbuilding from a store to offices and providing a 1st floor extension to the rear of number 8 Crawford Square, and the recommendation is to approve. The application site, as outlined in red, is an existing property operating as an office within Crawford Square, as you'll see in the site location map. The application site's within the development limits of Derry. It's within the Clarendon Street Conservation Area. It's also within the central area of Derry as defined in map 3, and it's also within a flat policy area. The site is located on the western side of Crawford Square. It's number 8 is Crawford Square as a grade B2 listed building. It's a 3-story, 2-bay rendered terrace, built in 1871. The exterior has been retained in character in terms of style and proportions over the years. To the rear of the property, there's a 1.5-story outbuilding store, which is characteristic of Crawford Square from when viewing it from Academy Road. At present, there's a mixture of uses along the western side of Crawford Square, mainly residential, but there are also a number of non-residential uses, including offices and a gym. The existing floor plans and the layout of the property are detailed in the case officer report and before you in the slides. So it's a 3-story property with a 2-story rear return with a single-story link rear return which links to the outbuilding at the back, and the floor plans. The main body of the building is used for offices at present. So the proposed development centres at the rear of the property. So the existing main property and their 2-story rear extension will remain as and there's a proposed first floor extension to the single-story link to the outbuilding, which just circling here on the presentation, and the conversion of the outbuilding to be used for office uses. You'll see the floor plans also detailed in the report. The proposed use is mainly for consultation rooms and a committee room within the outbuilding. So just to give you an idea of the context of the site when viewing it from the rear at Academy Road, this is the nature of the outbuildings that are proposed to be converted. And you'll note the 2-story extensions that exists characteristic of Crawford Square at the rear there. And again, this is a view of the site from a neighbouring property, number 7 Crawford Square. You'll have an idea of the context in terms of the outbuildings and the nature of the rear yards. Again, this is a view looking back out towards the application site from number 7. So this is the outbuilding that's to be converted. The first floor extension will come along towards that outbuilding. And again, this is a view of the rear yard of the application site. So the policy context is set out in the case officer report. It includes a Derry area plan, the SBPS, PPS 3 in terms of access, movement and parking, PPS 6 in terms of planning, archaeology and the built heritage. And we've noted the emerging Derry City and Strabane District Council Local Development Plan. Again, there's been a number of objections to this application. We've received 14 written objections from 6 separate addresses. These have been considered in detail in the case officer report. The main issues are summarised below. These include the fabric of the building being lost, the increased height will impact on adjacent properties and bedrooms, the impact in terms of the increase in number of visitors to the site. The proposed steps of the rear building will affect privacy, devaluation of property concerns for future use of the building, if funding dries up, issues with the existing disability ramp to the front of the property, and general issues in relation to the lack of on-street parking for local residents at Crawford Square and parking issues in general in the locality. We've consulted a number of bodies in relation to this full application, including Historic Environment Division, who are content with the proposal, and they've also been consulted in the associated listed building consent and have no issues in relation to the listed building consent. We've also got the views of monuments and they have no issues at this particular application site. Environmental Health have provided standard informatives in relation to construction noise and dust during construction. And DFA Roads have provided conditions informatives and some advice in relation to parking standards. So in relation to the dairy area plan, there are a number of relevant policies set out within the existing dairy area plan, which have been taken into account. These include policy BE1, which relates to urban design. Officers believe that the first floor extension is considered to be sensitive in terms of its design, scale and use of materials, and is compliant with this relevant policy. Policy BE2 deals with listed buildings and very much mirrors similar policies within PPS 6. So we've taken into account the views of HED in this respect, and we believe that the proposed extension and the works of the listed building are compliant with this policy. Policy B4 deals with development within the conservation area. And again, it mirrors a lot of the policies contained within PPS 6, which deals with conservation areas. And officers review that this will not adversely impact on the conservation area in terms of the scale and design, and it won't have an adverse impact on the overall character of the area. Policy B7 deals with archaeological sites. Again, there's no issues raised by the statutory consultee monuments in this respect. Officers recognise that the site is located within the central area. It's in an area identified as protected residential stock within the dairy area plan. Suppose alluded to in the site characteristics, the residential character of this street is not entirely intact, and there's been a number of non-residential uses approved or established in the street over the years. And indeed, there's planning history relating to number 8 Crawford Square as far back as 1992, signifying that there's been an office use at that property for a long period. So there's no issues in terms of protecting residential stock in respect of this application. So PPS 6 contains 3 policies that are of relevance. BH8 deals with extensions, alterations of a listed building. HED, the relevant statutory body, have been consulted on the associated LBC application. They're content that it's compatible with the policy requirements of BH8. BH11 refers to the effect of setting of a listed building. So as well as taking into account the host building, we also have taken into account the other listed buildings in the locality, which are a number of the properties within Crawford Square are also listed. HED have advised that they have no issues in relation to the impacts on the setting of the host building or any of the adjacent listed properties. And officers agree with this recommendation. BH12 deals with new development in the conservation area. Officers are content with the scale and mass of extension and the alterations, and we have a view that it will not have an adverse impact on the conservation area. It's noted that there's been other extensions within Crawford Square, which are perhaps larger in scale than this, and we believe that the main features of that mix the character of the Crawford Square and the Academy Road area, such as the outbuilding and the 2-storey returns, are retained. And the small insertion of first floor won't have an adverse impact or on the character of the building or the area. PPS 3, the dairy area plan have policies that sets out how we should deal with new developments in relation to provision of adequate parking. We have consulted DFA Roads, and they've recommended that for an extension of the scale in terms of floor space, that the public standards would normally require 2 additional spaces to be provided for the development. Now, the dairy area plan and AMP7 recognise that the location nature of a proposal can be taken into account in the consideration of the application. So in terms of policy TR5 and the dairy area plan, the application site is identified within Zone B. Within Zone B, the levels of operational and non-operational parking can be determined by council, taking into account the nature of the development, the availability of existing parking on and off street, and other local circumstances. Officers do recognise that within Crawford Square itself, there is a scarcity of parking within the main area of Crawford Square. However, we have also taken into account other issues such as the nature of the development and what has been proposed. This is a fairly minor extension to an existing use to provide a conference room and consultee rooms associated with the existing use. The agent acting on behalf of the applicant has provided additional information in terms of the usage of the new extension and the overall usage of the site. We've been advised that 80% of site visits to the office are short-term visits for appointments, etc., given the nature of the office use. Taking that into account, officers have reviewed it. The short-term parking that's available on Academy Road can provide capacity for a majority of visitors to this that will be attracted to this property. We've also taken into account the location of the site within Zone B, and that it's quite close. It's in the central area, quite close to the city centre, as well as main traffic routes and bus routes such as the Northland Road, and it's in walking distance to the city centre. So there's all available transport methods for visitors to the site. So on balance, officers recognise that the standards that DFA roads have put forward, however, have given width to the reduced standards that can be applied within the area plan and AMP7, given the scale and nature of the proposed development. So officers having to take into account all material considerations, including objections, planning policy, and consultation responses, are recommended the application is approved subject to the conditions set out in the case officer report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Malachy. Could I please invite Laverne Mason to come forward? Laverne is going to speak on behalf of the objectors. Hello, Laverne, you're very welcome to.
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm not really prepared for this because I just found out by chance yesterday that that this decision had been made today, so kind of rushed in my presentation. Just to put it in, sorry.
Just to let you know, you have 5 minutes to
Okay.
maximum to present this today, and at about 4.5 minutes, I'll give you a shout to ask you to wrap up at that stage.
Okay, hopefully I won't be that long.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I live at number 7 Crawford Square, so that's the adjoining building to number 8. My home is a mid-Victorian terrace, which is paired to and symmetrical to number 8, which is the building that's looking for the extension. We're a part of a terrace of 16 buildings. The architect that actually built our street, you know, he might find it relevant, but I do, built Magazine Gate and the City Cemetery entrance. And Crawford Square has never been given the conservation protection that it deserves. There's 7 families left on that street from numbers 1 to 19. And we are custodians for these listed buildings and our street that we care for constantly. I have no objection to CAMS and the work that they do, but the building is just not simply fit for purpose. It's a B1 listed building. They've had to have a ramp go into the front of the house, which then would go into our living room. There is no other access for them to go 3 terrace apart from the stairs up the ways. The increase in floor space is going to allow more customers to come to their property. As alluded, there is just no parking in that street whatsoever. Just before I came here, I got a ticket. My husband's in hospital. There's disability. They put outside. I went in to get change for this meeting, came out, and there's a ticket. There is no provision for parking whatsoever. It is a constant battle, and for them to think that 20 to 30 customers a day in and out of that property, the stop and go, the loitering outside the street, it's just not acceptable. As far as how my property is going to be impacted, there's they mention about when the 2 properties butt together. the water that's going to recede and come into my property, that is not, that's something that we have to take care of ourselves. Our right to light, that story is going to block the light from my bedroom. We have a small yard with very little space, and the steps coming out will be looking into my property, which also leaves us vulnerable to people having access to our enclosed yard. So as far, it's just in our area, we're just saturated with parking. Planning just keeps being made. The council is allowing parking provision to constantly be made, and it's got to stop somewhere. We're trying to preserve these homes, the place in which we live in, and we cannot do that because we are being forced out. And that's everything I have to say.
Thank you for that, Laverne. Is anybody any questions for Laverne?
Sorry, I just would like to add that they had stated about a mixed use. There's 3 properties, 1, 2, and 8 are offices. There's 80 odd houses in that area that are residential.
Thank you for that. Members, any questions for Laverne? Or is there anybody online has any questions for Laverne? I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you for attending today. Okay, there's no other speakers indicated to speak today, so we're just moving on to any questions for Malachy or any officers on this one. Councillor Jackson.
Good Chair, and thanks Malachy for the report. Malachy, and I know you touched on it in your presentation, but I don't know the site very well, as a lot of people in this chamber, and we're only too aware of the parking pressures that one of the objectors alluded to, and in relation to those real pressures that currently exist out with this application. And I know you alluded, you pointed out that this is zone 2, and it's adjacent to the central core. But what consideration was given to the existing residents that are living there? Was that taken into consideration, and how that was factored into your recommendation? Thanks, Chair.
Malachy.
Yes, for the Chair. Yeah, we're during the process of application. We're very much aware of the concerns from the residents in relation to the parking standards and the parking issues in the area, and we raise this. You'll see correspondence in the application with the agent and how they believe that they could accommodate this increase in floor space given the concerns of the local residents. As I say, our officers did observe on site that there was certainly pressures on Crawford Square itself during our daytime visits. I suppose what we're saying within our recommendation is that the correspondence submitted by the agent in October 2024 gives a better understanding of how the office operates in terms of visitors and in terms of how long they stay and visit the application site. So one of the things that we did observe on site as we looked at the rear of the property, obviously looking at the extension, on the days that we visited the site, that there was availability in terms of the 1 hour parking spaces at Academy Road. We believe if visitors were coming for short visits, given the nature of the office use, that the small increase, I think it's 2 spaces, that the standards are recommending that this could be accommodated, within the locality in particular could be accommodated within Academy Road in the 1 hour parking space. So yes, we did take into account the concerns, but again, it's a balanced recommendation, and it's balanced on the nature of the proposed development and how it operates. And we believe that on balance that shortfall can be accommodated in terms of the type of visits and the duration of visits to the property we created by the increase the floor space of the office.
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Margie, for that.
Hold on.
Thanks very much, Chair, for letting me in. I suppose, Malachy, just in regards to, this is just me, for my own headspace, but the very fact that they're building the conference room, you know what I mean, would indicate to me that it wouldn't just be like small meetings of clients coming in, that potentially this could be like wider meetings and, you know, so there'd be a lot more than potentially 2 people come to the meetings, you know, which would have, as you would imagine, probably 2, 3, 4 cars per meeting if they were, was that factored in, the fact that it's conference facilities as opposed to like a one-on-one meeting space?
Yes, for the chair. Yes, we did consider the use of the committee room, and we've been advised by the operator that the conference room would be used for a small amount of times a year. It wouldn't be something that's used on a daily basis. It would be used for occasional meetings, and again, sometimes these meetings would not be during daytime. It could be off-peak during evenings, etc., because of availability of committee members, etc., to attend such meetings. And also will be utilised by the current staff who are already using the property also.
Alderman McMorris.
Sorry, so it's just based on the applicant's word that it's not going to increase footfall as opposed to, you know, it's still going to be like a one-on-one meeting, that it's not going to be like multiple, do you know what I mean, people around the room?
Whatever I've seen you indicating there, protocol doesn't allow us to. Say it again. No, just speakers get their 5 minutes, and that's what the protocol is. Sorry about that. Alderman McMorris, do you want to come back at anything there?
No, that's just, I was just basically asking, so if the applicant or the agent comes back with that information, that's what it's based on. So there's no mechanism to place that at any stage or whatever, do you know, it's just ticking on that one factor. Am I right in saying that? Yep.
Yes, no, we did take in the account. No, the information we've received is from the applicant's agent. They're providing information on how it operates. In terms of policing it, there obviously conditions can be put on an application, but they'll have to meet the test of a condition. And it's in terms of how we can enforce who visits a committee room on a daily basis will be difficult in terms of enforcement. But I do take your point in that respect. But I mean, there's the option to consider conditions in this case.
Thank you. Anything else, Alderman?
Can you give me an example of what conditions could be put on that, just so for my own value?
Well, for example, one of the issues that they raise is the times of the use of the committee room. But it will, again, it's an example. You know, you could control times of operation but we have to take into account that the existing building is not conditioned in the offices in terms of time. So we'd have to take into account whether it be reasonable to condition, a certain part of the building as opposed to the overall building, and how would you enforce that? So yeah, it's probably difficult in my professional opinion to apply a condition in that respect.
Thank you, Malachy. Anything else, Alderman? No, thank you. Anybody online or anybody in the chamber here wish to ask any questions? Malachy, please. Councillor Boyle.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, in the report, Malachy, there's reference to, and I understand this and appreciate it as the case, of course, in relation to a view or obviously not having a planning consideration in relation to the right to have a view. However, what consideration would have been given to the potential for loss of light, which I do know would be a significant consideration? So loss of light to neighbouring properties, for example.
Through the chair, we officers visit the site a number of occasions, and we visit the site from the perspective of neighbouring properties. So that was very much to the forefront in our recommendation. And I think it's set out within the section in terms of residential amenity under the SPPS. We've taken into account, we've taken into account in terms of the scale of the proposed extension at the first floor. We've taken into account the existing situation within neighbouring properties and the terrace nature of the property and the aspect, in terms of what's behind the property. And again, on balance, we don't believe that there will be a significant adverse impact in terms of loss of light. Granted, with all terrace properties, if you an extension up, there may be some loss of light, but we don't think it would be significantly harmful in this case.
Councillor Boyle. Councillor Minute.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just not sure. I don't see it in the pack, but given that this is an application for an extension, is it the applicant's case that they are lacking capacity within the building minute to service the resistant function? Thank you.
Sorry, Richard, just to catch up a little bit, sorry.
Just as saying, given that it is an application for an extension of the existing building, did the applicant provide any information in the application about the reason why? Is it because they have a lack of capacity within the building for their current use, or any of those details? Thank you.
I'm not aware of any specific details that were in this through the application on the, I suppose it's an assumption that given the nature of business that they require the storage space to operate. So that's right.
Mr. Minute, go ahead.
I suppose it's unfair because the applicant's agent's not here, so it's maybe unfair to ask the officer anyway, but thank you anyway, Chair. Thank you very much.
Yeah, members, any further questions? Anybody online? Any questions from Malachy? No, can't see anybody else indicating to ask any questions. So members, we have land application with the front of us with the recommendation for approval. Can I pass it over to yourselves there for anybody wishes to propose that or make a proposal? Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, go ahead, good Chair. And I've considered the report, and I do know the area quite well. Know the parking pressures, and I would share the concerns that were expressed by the objector. But I accept, Maggie, that there was a balanced judgment in relation to this. But the 1 hour parking that exists in Academy Road does lend itself well to the nature of the visits to this proposed application. But what has sort of swayed me is the proposed use of the building. Whilst there's been many crises that's been alluded to within this chamber, but I don't think anybody will dispute the fact that there is a mental health crisis, particularly within our young people, and there's a massive need for facilities for those that support young people through mental health issues. And I do believe that this application will go some way to support people, whilst protecting the listed building and the residential character of the area. I don't believe that it takes away in any way. I had serious concerns in relation to parking, but the officer's assessment and professional opinion has given me a fair degree of comfort. So I am prepared to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation and approve. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson, do we have a seconder anywhere? Anybody online?
Happy to second it, Chair. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you. Councillor Gallagher. So members, we have a proposal there from Councillor Jackson and seconded by Councillor Gallagher to accept the officer's recommendation. I want to take a vote on this one, please.
Okay, members, this is for planning application LA 11 2023 1927F. Alderman Keith Kerrigan,
I'll abstain on this one, Suzanne.
Alderman Nery McMorris,
I'm also going to abstain.
Alderman Janice Montgomery,
I am finding this difficult. I'm going to abstain.
Councillor John Boyle,
Against?
Councillor Caroline Devine,
Tara.
Councillor Sean Fleming. He's not here.
I wasn't able to connect until just now. I'll have to abstain.
Councillor Paul Gallagher,
Four.
Councillor Christopher Jackson,
Uh,
Councillor Fergal Leonard, Councillor Patricia Logue,
Unfortunately, I had to leave the room, so I have to abstain.
Councillor Sean Mooney, Councillor Patrick Murphy, Councillor Martin Riley,
Or
Councillor Gracie Nealis.
I'm just going to abstain on this one on the basis that I completely understand the issues that the residents have in that area. I understand the importance of the conservation area. But at the same time, my difficulty is that if it wasn't for community organisations and charities, that a lot of these listed buildings within our city would be lying derelict. So for that reason, I'm going to abstain.
Okay, that's 7 for, 1 against and 6 abstain.
So that's 7 for, 1 against and 6 abstentions. So that application has been approved. Moving on now to the next one. This is for the same address, 8 Crawford Square. This one is a listed building application. Convert that building from store to offices, providing a first floor extension to the rear. Malky's taking us through this one.
Thank you, Chair. L11 2023 1932 is a listed building consent application to convert the building from a store to offices and provide a first floor extension to the rear at number 8 Crawford Square. And officer's recommendation is to grant consent. Again, this is the same application site as the grade 2 B2 listed building within Crawford Square. The proposal is outlined before is an extension at the rear to provide a link to an existing outhouse, which is to be converted for office use. And again, this is the outbuilding to be converted, the existing two-story extension, and here and a link at first floor. They link these two elements of the property, and its views from neighbouring properties. The policy context in terms of the listed building consent is outlined in the Dairy Area Plan, the SPPS, PPS 6, and there was objections received in this application, although LBCs are not subject to a standard neighbour notification process. There was 3 letters from one address, and as outlined in the report, these raise issues that ought to be considered under the full application, and were considered under the full application for all our objectors in any case relating to parking and impact on residential amenity. So in relation to the listed building consent, the statutory consultee is historic buildings and historic environment division. They've advised that they're happy to grant consent subject to conditions set out in the case officer report. So they've made their recommendation in relation to specific elements within the ASPPS, PPS 6 in terms of the extension to a listed building, and BH 11 in terms of the development affecting the setting of a listed building. So they have acknowledged in arriving at the recommendation that the scheme has sought to retain the legibility of the building's development in terms of its scale and mass. They're saying there that the principal body of the building as the street frontage with a secondary scale rear return, which diminishes in mass as it moves through the outbuildings at the rear of the plot of the site plot. So they're content with this form of development, and they're content with the scale and design of it also. So they've provided conditions in relation to that, which are outlined in the report and mainly relate to final details in terms of materials, etc., in terms of particular elements of the extension, such as fenestration, and that can be viewed in the case officer report. So there's 4 or 5 conditions there. So the case officer's recommendation in this case is taking into account the consultation response and also the third-party comments, as well as the existing policy framework, is to recommend that listed building consent is granted for the proposed extension and conversion at 8 Crawford Square. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Malachy. There's no indicator speakers on this one. On behalf of any objectors, there's no agent present, so we'll just go straight to any questions for Malachy, please. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I think that this committee and previous committees have had disagreements, for want of a better word, with some of the comments in relation to from HCD, and it is around the benefits of retaining listed buildings for use, and keeping them in modern use. And I'm pleased to see that HCD have recognised this, and I have absolutely no reason to disagree with them in this occasion. So more than content to propose that we accept officer's recommendation. Thanks, sir.
Thank you for that, for those comments, Councillor Jackson. Is anybody online? So we have a proposal to accept the officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder?
Happy to second again, Chair.
That's Councillor Gallagher. Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Okay, members, so we have proposal and a seconder there to accept the officer's recommendation. Can we go to a vote on this, please? Thank you.
Okay, members, this is in relation to LA 11 2023 1932 LBC. Alderman Keith Kerrigan,
Stay Suzanne.
Alderman Mary McMorris,
And I'm also going to abstain.
Alderman Janice Montgomery,
Abstain.
Councillor John Boyle, Councillor Caroline Devine, Councillor Sean Fleming, Councillor Paul Gallagher,
For.
Councillor Christopher Jackson, Councillor Fergal Leonard, Councillor Patricia Logue, or Councillor Sean Mooney, Councillor Patrick Murphy, Councillor Martin Riley,
Or
Councillor Gracie Nealis.
Abstain.
members, that is 10 for and 4 abstentions. So consent has been granted on this one. Thank you. Moving on to number 5. This is application for site for a dwelling at Ballycarden Road, Cumber. And Malachy's taking us through this one. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. The application before you is LA 11 2022 0927. It's an outline application for a site for dwelling at 40 metres southeast of 40 Lower Ballyarton Road, Cumber, Claudy. And the recommendation is to refuse. The application site is a roadside plot which rises from the Lower Ballyarton Roads to the south, to the back of the site, to the south. The north western boundary is defined by vegetation. The other boundaries on the roadside and on the south east are open at present. The site is located in the open countryside and it's outside any development limits. So the application site, these photographs have been taken whilst travelling from the direction of Claudy. So on approach from the east, that's the photograph here is the immediate location of the site. As you'll see, it rises up from Lower Ballyarton Road. And on approach from Claudy, you'll see that each side of the Lower Ballyarton Road is heavily treed on both sides, and the site is on there on the left-hand side. And again, as an overhead of the site, again, you'll notice the heavily vegetated area. And when you'll see from the application photograph, if I go back to that, there's a number of properties located within that vegetated area, which will be alluded to in the report also. So in terms of the policy context, set out in the case officer report, and again, the Dairy Area Plan, the SPPS, PPS2 in terms of natural heritage, PPS3 in terms of access, movement and parking, CTY 16 within PPS 21 relating to development relying on non-main sewage, and PPS 21 relating to development in the countryside, and PPS 6 relating to planning archaeology and the built heritage. There have been 2 letters of representation received from 2 separate households. These are summarised and considered in the report. So in terms of the summary for the presentation today, there's issues regarding the inaccurate description of the application, the neighbour notification process, the accuracy of submitted plans, proposal failing to meet criteria in CTY 2A of PPS 21, failing to meet CTY 1 of PPS 21, contrary to CTY 8, 13 and 14 of PPS 21, distances between the site and number 42 septic tank, concerns regarding the access and the shared nature of it, and concerns regarding environmental health responses. So we've consulted a number of bodies in relation to this application. NA Water have no issues. Environmental Health have provided advice regarding traffic noise, radon, construction noise and dust, and waste disposal burning. So these are just informative. DFA Roads have no objection to proposal and have indicated approximately 50 metres of hedgerow will be removed to the northwest to achieve the recommended visibility displays. NED and Water Management Unit have been consulted in respect of the proposed sewage method of sewage and have referred to standard conditions and formulas within DERA standard advice. Shared Environmental Services have been consulted given the proximity to the River Faughan SAC and also the possible hydrological link to the site. They've carried out an appropriate assessment and have no concerns in relation to the proposed development. Historic Environment Division have responded with no issues. DFA Rivers have responded with no objection, and NAE have responded with no objections. So it was put to the officers by the applicant that the proposed site ought to be approved under CTY 1 on the basis that the application meets the policy requirements for CTY 2A, which are new dwellings in existing clusters in the countryside. So there are 6 tests set out within CTY 2A, and the policy states to avail of this policy, you have to meet all 6 tests. So officers have considered the site in respect of each of the tests within CTY 2A, and I'll just go through our summary here, and which is detailed in our report. So in terms of the first criteria, the cluster development has to lie outside a farm and consist of 4 or more buildings, excluding ancillary buildings such as garages, outbuildings, and open-sided structures, of which at least 3 are dwellings. Officers believe that the first criterion is not met, as we do not believe there's a defined cluster established visually at the location or in terms of the grounds set out on criteria A. The application site does abound 2 dwellings. One is number 42, which is an active and occupied dwelling, and number 40, which is an unoccupied property, but officers accept as a dwelling. So the other properties such as outbuildings and garages associated with 42 have to be discounted in accordance with the policy. So visually, in relation to that, we do not believe that the first criteria is met. So criteria 2 relates to a visual assessment. Does the cluster appear as a visual entity in the local landscape? So when considering the visual entity here, we've taken into account the nature of the lower Ballyarden Road and how properties relate to each other visually. It's quite a winding road with heavily vegetated. When you come to this site, the extent of existing development at this location, from officer opinion, is 2 dwellings, which are 42 and 40. But we do not believe that, given the vegetation, they appear as a cluster as a visual entity in this part of the lower Ballyarden Road. The agent has asked us to consider in a supporting statement that the application forms part of a wider cluster, which extends approximately some 950 metres along the lower Ballyarden Road. So it's asked us to take into account properties that we believe are not visually linked. You can't view those when you're travelling in both directions as a visual entity together, and they're visually separated by the landscape and topographical features. So the officer's opinion that cluster part 2 of the criteria has not been met in this respect. Part 3 of CTY 2A advises that the cluster has to be associated with a focal point, such as a social community building facility, or be located at crossroads. The agent and applicant has asked us to consider that this proposed development's focal point, or this proposed cluster's focal point, would be the Humber Upper Parish Church and Community Hall, which is located 950 metres east of the site along the lower Ballyarden Road as you go towards Claudy. There's no visual linkage whatsoever between the Humber Church and proposed focal point and the proposed site. And we do not believe that this cluster can be visually linked with it or associated, given the separation distance and the locality. So we believe that the FIR criteria cannot be met. In terms of providing a suitable degree of enclosure and being bounded on at least 2 sides, with our development, officers accept that there is a suitable degree of enclosure, given the vegetation on the northwest of the site and the rising nature of the site, and the vegetation beyond as well on the southwest of the site. And we accept that there's 2 properties bound on the site, so we believe that the 4th criteria can be met. And in terms of the site being absorbed into an existing cluster, we do not think it, having a property here would alter, the existing 2 properties or the character that exists along that part of the road. So in balance, the 5th criteria could be met. In terms of the 6th criteria, we do not believe that there be any adverse impact on residential property, given the separation distance and the relationship between the site and the 2 adjacent properties. Granted, this is an outline application, but we're satisfied that there's sufficient distance to allow for a house at that area. So in summary, as said before in the presentation there, C2A, 2A, all of the following criteria have to be met. We believe that the first 3 bullet points are not met as outlined in the report. We've also considered C2A 8 in terms of comments of the applicant, the third party, and we do not believe that it meets the exception criteria set out in C2A 8, and therefore is not an exception under that relevant policy. Given the relationship on the site, it's not within a continuously built up frontage, nor is it a small gap site. Policies C2A 13 and 14 have been considered, and again, given the nature of the site and the vegetation, we're satisfied that a dwelling could be there if it had met one of the exceptional criteria set out in C2A 1. It could have been integrated and not have an adverse impact. So in terms of C2A 16, we've consulted water management and environmental health, NA Water, as well as shared environmental services, and we're satisfied that the method of non-main sewage proposed can be operated at the site without adverse impact on any aquatic environments, subject to complying with standard conditions and standing advice as set out by DERA. In terms of PPS free, we note that the objector had issues and concerns with regards to access, but DFA roads have been consulted, and they believe that it will not prejudice road safety or cause significant inconvenience to traffic subject to conditions. We've also considered impact on natural heritage in terms of the relevant policies within PPS 2. Central to our consideration, this site was its location near the River Faughan SAC and ASSA. Shared Environmental Service have been consulted formally and have carried out appropriate assessment and have no issues. And Natural Environment Division have also responded with no objections subject to conditions. And we've also considered the nature of the loss of the hedge line, but given it was basically low-level gorse, roadside gorse, we don't believe it meets the description of a priority habitat in terms of the hedgerow, and therefore we're satisfied that that element within PPS 2 has also been complied with. In terms of rivers, rivers have been consulted, given the separation distance that's outside any floodplain, and therefore they have no objections. We noted on the map that there's a historic mound described in the area, so we've consulted Historic Environment Division, who have advised us that they have no objections, given the negligible impact upon this feature. So in summary, officers are recommending that the application should be refused on the grounds that it doesn't meet any of the exceptions within policy CTOA 1. And this case put forward, in particular for CTOA 2A, we believe it fails to meet criteria 1, 2 and 3 of policy CTOA 2A. And there's been no other overriding reasons or material planning considerations put forward to us to allow such a development at this location. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Malachy. We have no indicator speakers at all joining us today, so I will go straight to questions for Malachy or for any officers, please. Has anybody online any questions for Malachy? No, it doesn't seem to be any questions there. So members, recommendation is to refuse this protected application. So can I pass it over to yourselves here? Councillor Logue.
I'll just propose we accept the officer's recommendation.
Sir Mooney. So first there, so I'll to you. Is everybody in agreement with that, or does anybody doesn't agree with that? Everybody online in agreement with this? So what I can see, everybody's in agreement with this, and with one abstain. Councillor Boyle wasn't in the room. So thank you. So we are agreeing with the officer's recommendation on this one. Moving on to item 9, implementation of quality submissions and validation checklist. Now, Suzanne, to go through this, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is a paper to update you on proposals to introduce a process improvement upgrade in the form of a quality submissions guide. Some of you will recall, and you'll see with the appendix, we had previously on 2 occasions proposed into yourselves and got agreement on to go forward and work and draft a validation checklist. Since the most recent the last time it went into committee, which was in March 2024, the department have actually now made legislation on this matter. That was made in October 2024 and will be coming into operation now in April 2025. So it wasn't possible for us at that stage to introduce the previous pilot proposal. So what officers have considered now is also in line with the draft plan strategy, which is now obviously in the public domain. We are proposing to move ahead now to create and implement the quality submissions guide. I have updated the first part of that, which is the validation checklist, to include a few additional reports that will be required as part of our draft plan strategy. The second part of the guide will be a guide, advising applicants and agents. So, for example, for a house extension, you'll require X, Y, and Z. For a housing development of 50 plus houses, you'll require whatever reports. So there will be a more bespoke guidance. It's not just going to be a list of nearly 40 reports there, okay? The department has also just published on Monday of this week a development management practice note, number 8, on this actual issue. And as part of that, we are also required to carry out public engagement with, obviously, inviting comments from the public, engaging with stakeholder groups, inviting their comments, and also I would be proposing that the officers will have a specific engagement with the agents in terms of advising them, what we want to see, and also in terms of, for example, the electronic submissions and things like that we also want to touch base with them on. So that is basically a short summary of what we, an update of where we're going on this now. And all being well, if you're in agreement today, we can move ahead and organise the final document, go ahead with the engagement. If there's any major issues, we'll bring that back in. And then hopefully we can implement. I mean, this will provide certainty for applicants and agents. It'll also provide certainty for those third parties maybe involved in the process, that all the information will be there at the start of the process. It will also mean that hopefully that we will be getting the decisions out more effectively. And in terms of our consultation with consultees, it means that we're not waiting on them to ask for a noise report. We know it will be required. We know that you will need a flood risk assessment if you're within the floodplain. So it will create more certainty at the start of the process. So happy to take any questions on this, members, today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Suzanne. That's good to see this part of the step forward. So any comments there from any of the members? Councillor Lowe?
Other than just to welcome this, it certainly will. We all know what's needed going forward, and this is a big piece of work. So yes, I'd just like to propose it. Thank the officers for bringing it here. Thank you.
Could I have a seconder for that, please? That's Alderman McMorris. Thank you. We're moving on to open for information. You'll see in your pack there the list of decisions and appeals update. Has anybody any comments or any questions on that, please? Anybody online, any comments or queries? No. Can I request it with confidential, please? Proposer and seconder. Councillor Devine, Councillor Mooney.